I'm Patrick Beauchesne. I'm a biological anthropologist. I'm not a mental health expert. I'm just someone who cares deeply about these issues and has tried to think about it somewhat deeply, hopefully. And so I have three main goals. My first goal is just to provide some statistics about the state of mental health struggles for faculty and students. Sarah did a wonderful job, so I'm going to go through that really quickly. My second main goal is to really try to provide a few, just a handful of options, both at the individual level and also at the institutional level. So hopefully we have upper level people here listening. But my main goal for being here today is simply to lend my voice and participate in fighting stigma and talking about this in public and just getting the word out. I think this is a wonderful initiative that I hope continues in the coming years. I hope it's not a one and done thing. We do have to talk about these things regularly, so that's my main focus for today. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of faculty, there's all kinds of research that's out there, lots of different numbers. You can see them up on the screen. In many cases, it's up to 25% report being severely depressed, in Canada. Another study later showed about 40% were talking about feeling really very depressed, sad frequently. And then we have, in the United States, other studies, again, just in line with all the other ones. It's a really dire situation. We have a lot of faculty who are burning out, who are fighting the pressures of publish or perish, who are trying to do the best by their students, and it's just a lot. We have a lot of responsibilities. We have service expectations to help run the university, and it becomes too much to bear for many people, especially for faculty who are asked to do too much. And it's very gendered, and it's very biased along racial lines as well, so there's a lot of factors here at play. Next one, please. And for students, it's not so great either. In fact, the statistics, just to summarize very quickly, because Sarah went over this, it's worse for students overall. Both at the undergraduate and graduate levels, it's pretty bad. Many students report anxiety, severe depression, self-harm. I experienced this, frankly, myself personally in my classes this term multiple times. Students coming to me about self-harm, suicidal ideation, all kinds of things. This is common. So it's, talking about this is the first step to moving to fix these issues. So social stigma, from a lot of the research I was looking at, is one of the major barriers, and I think this was pointed out in other talks today, in people reaching out to get help. And the reason stigma is so damaging, right, is because it ultimately silences and isolates people. It makes people feel that they should be treating these issues on their own, that it's a private issue, that they should not reach out to others because they will be seen as different, as not part of the norm. We are often, people who want to reach out feel that they will be othered, that they will be labeled as someone different, as someone who is broken, who is not worthy, who is not normal. So all of these feelings, and these quotes here are from some articles I had, right? I must be the one that's the problem, or I heard this from a student the other day when we were talking about mental health in class, this week actually. And this student says, well, I think I should just get over it, right? And of course, I stopped and we had a big talk about why that's a serious problem, that sort of ideology, that sort of way of thinking, right, leads you down a very lonely, very dark path. Right? So, and depression in particular, I think, especially for faculty who reach out, depression is very much seen as a failure of character, as someone who wasn't up to task, someone who simply just couldn't cut it. And that's a serious problem that we have to recognize, especially when things like tenure, right, become part of the equation. Next slide, please. So just for context, I pulled this quote from an article. This is from a research article by someone who was relating their experiences with major depression in their quest for tenure. And the whole article is about the failures of institutions, this one, a university, in dealing and treating people with depression as human beings. So just to read it in case you can't see it, right? I was breaking a key rule of academic life by breaching the barrier between personal interaction and professional discourse. I was asking my superiors to engage with me and my illness more intimately in a way that required them to see me as a whole human being. It required a willingness in them to change our relationship, and they were not willing. I was feeling isolated when we went into that meeting, but when confronted with their lack of reaction, I felt the sting of the stigma underpinning my disease, and that was devastating. So I'll just leave that there, because I think that really highlights the nature of what we're dealing with. At the faculty level, when we struggle, especially for assistant professors who are not yet tenured, that pressure to publish or get kicked out is immense, right? And when you are faced with a response like this, you can imagine what that must feel like. All right, next slide, please. Okay. So in terms of a few tips here, I just want to add some context too. We do have agency in making our lives better, and I think everyone so far has spoken beautifully to this. But I also want to reiterate that what I'm about to say in the coming slides are not panaceas. They're not going to fix everything. The critique of self-care is absolutely valid that Amy brought up, right? So there's all that in mind. I want to sort of have you all keep that in mind as I go through these next steps. And also, these are just a handful of things that I've grabbed over various research articles. These aren't this isn't an exhaustive list by any means. Okay, next slide. So first of all, and this is again why we're all here, you're not alone in dealing with this, right? If there's one thing you take away from this, I think that should be it, that others are feeling the same thing with you. I talk about this with imposter syndrome with students all the time. The same goes with mental illness, depression, anxiety, all of these things, right? And then also, this is something that we face tremendously as faculty. Working harder or more hours doesn't mean you are being productive or useful, right? At some point, you reach a limit where you're working for the sake of working. You're not producing anything valuable or interesting or good. You are just stressing yourself out for no purpose, right? So keep that in mind, right? And then I think setting boundaries, both professionally and personally, is really, really critical. Carving out time for yourself, for self-compassion, right? Self-care, not the commercial kind of self-care. And then finally, sort of building a self-care toolbox, right? So like Amy was saying and others were saying, things that work for me may not work for you, right? Exploring different ways of coping, of mitigating stress, like Caleb was saying. All of these different tools can be useful in mitigating stress. They will not remove it, and nor should we remove it, as Caleb was saying, entirely. Stress can lead to growth. It can lead to all kinds of things. But too much stress, like Caleb was saying, I talk about this a lot in my class, because I am an anthropologist. Okay, I guess I'll keep it. We don't know what's happening. I'm an anthropologist who's really excited about the interface of culture and biology and how our cultural and social lives changes our biology and affects us in profound ways, which also then changes our social lives, and it's a feedback loop. And what Kaylee was saying really spoke to that really well, and that's really exciting stuff. Now, at the institutional level, I think people in power should be mindful to not set potentially really unrealistic or toxic expectations for faculty. And in the current era of student enrollment issues and everything else that we're facing, this could become a problem, so we have to be very cognizant of this. People in power should also model healthy behaviors for faculty, right? Things like this is what we need, and more, right? And then redefining achievement. I think the work that Amy described, right? All the work she puts in with her students, all the work we all put in with our students, that has to be valued in some way, right? As institutions and universities become more corporatized, the metrics become very much about publication, research grants, and all that stuff that can be easily quantified. But all the extra effort that we put in has to have value, and it has to be assessed and somehow included in things like tenure, in promotions, and all that sort of thing, right? And then finally, organizing mentees to help support and basically try to build a culture of empathy and support rather than competition between each other, right, at the faculty level is really, really critical. All right, why does this all matter? I think, I'm big on empathy. I really try and live, what I research about this. And I think building a context like this where we can empathize and build empathy for others and their struggles is really, really critical. And the COVID context is important here too. We are not out of this pandemic. We are still living it. I am seeing the effects of this in my students daily, right? So I think we cannot keep pretending like we're back to normal. We are not back to normal. It is a long way off. And also, finally, I'll just end on a few points that, you know, all of this undue stress and the mental health challenges that we face, these actually affect our ability to teach well. It affects the students' ability to retain information. Unlike Ben Shapiro would have us believe, facts do care about your feelings. A happier student, a more well-adjusted student, one that is feeling good about themselves, will simply do better in school. They will know the information better, they will retain information better, they will learn better, and there's a sort of like feedback loop. They then make us more inspired and teach better, and it is a symbiotic relationship between the students and the faculty. And the more that we can take care of ourselves, the better we are able to take care of them. They benefit, we benefit. We are in this together in that sense. So, all right, I will pass it. Is it Finn next?